Hey guys, it's DJ at Lighthaven Farm again, and Steelhead season is definitely upon us. In this tutorial, I wanted to detail the steps and components that I use to rig up soft beads. I pre-rig all my soft beads prior to going to the river so that I can conveniently switch out sizes and colors instead of having to spend the time stream side and rig up everything. So here I'm detailing the different eggs and soft beads that are available from BNR and Lickum lures, and so here you see the extra small float stops that I get on Amazon. I use exclusively Seagar STS 100% fluorocarbon leaders and everything from 4 to 12 pounds to tie up my bead rigs. I'm going to do a real simple snell here. There's plenty of tutorials on the YouTube. There is ways of doing snelled hooks. This is just the one I use. I'm going to enter in from the gap side of the hook. That is a Raven wide gap specimen hook. I'm tying a loop here on one end. You'll see me pinch it with my fingers once I get it in the position that I'm comfortable with. Straightening it out. And then I'm going to run 8 loops around the lead and the shank of the hook. They're going to be tight loops, stacked one on top of each other, progressing from the tips of my fingers toward the eye of the hook. And once I get to 8, I'm going to feed that tag end through the loop that I had pinched in my fingers. I'm going to draw the lead end till the loop disappears and snags the tag end securely in place within the knot. Okay, so the triple extra small bobber stops have a wire guide that you feed the leader through, which makes it easy to get the bobber stop onto your leader. Ideally end up with a 2-finger gap between the hook and the first stop. As you can see, I'm gapping it right there. And now I have a super micro small bead that I'm going to use as just a bumper between the bobber stop that I just put on the line and the T-stop, which is going to come next. Okay, so these are T-stops, the large size from BNR Tackle, and they really hold well. And the reason why I'm using a bobber stop, a bead, and then these T-stops is the combination of those three hold the bead in position exactly where I want it for a pretty long duration. I've experimented used just the bobber stop and just the T-stop, and they tend to, on false strikes or when you try to set the hook and you don't get a fish, the bead tends to move around a little bit. And so the combination of these three together really hold it in place pretty well. Right here I'm going to put on one of the pearlescent sheen pink beads, and I'm going to use a baiting needle or an easy threading needle, self-threader needle. Makes it really easy to get the leader into the eye of the needle, and you don't have to fumble around with trying to feed the end in a really small hole. So you'll notice that I'm putting the needle into the axis of the bead as close as possible so that it doesn't look odd when it's on the T-stop. The T-stop will go right through the middle of the bead. I'm sure it probably in the end doesn't matter, but it looks better, and it probably assures you that you don't accidentally rip the bead in half when setting the hook. Maybe you get more mileage out of the bead in the end. So I'm watching myself feed this bead on the line, and ideally it'd probably be better to get the bead on the very end, so that you aren't feeding two lines through and fumble around with line. It would make it a lot quicker if you just have a small tag end when you feed it through, and that loop would be really quick, and then you just slide the bead down. But you can see that I can adjust the bead onto the T-stop. The T-stop's actually inside of that bead at this point, and then just the disc end of the T-stop is holding the bottom of the bead. So that's it. That's the finished rig. And I'm going to go over this one more time so that you can see kind of a redundant step-by-step process. So, got the STS fluorocarbon leader from Seagar. I'm going to do about a 2-foot length. Next up is snelling the hook. I use the specimen wide gap Raven hooks, and this is a size 8. And you can see I almost made the mistake of feeding it through the back side of the eye. You want to feed it through the gap side of the hook so that it comes out the back of the eye. And you do that because you'll see that if you do it the incorrect way, the hook tends to sit in a position of open, and you're not going to hook fish as readily as if it's in the hooked position, which you'll get when you tie this up coming through the gap side of the eye. So I'm going to do 8 loops, tight loops on the shank, wrapping over top of the lead as well as the shank of the hook, starting from where my fingers are pinched toward the eye of the hook. And once I get to 8, I'm going to feed that tag end through the loop that I had pinched in my fingers. I'm going to draw the lead end till the loop disappears and snags the tag end securely in place within the knot. Pull both ends to get it nice and taut. You're done. So now I'm going to grab the cuticle nippers and clip off the tag end. Not flush to the snell. I leave just a little bit of tag end there to make sure that it doesn't unravel. And this is a simple snell, so you definitely want a little bit of tag end sitting on that. Okay, next up is the extra small float stops, and if you feed just a little bit of line through there and then pull the float stop on, it's on the line real quick. You're not feeding 2 lines through the float stop for a long period of time here. So you can see how just boom, it's on. Take it all the way down to the hook, give it about 2-finger gap. Next up, I'm going to grab a hot pink micro bead there, and I just chose that for contrast. There's no particular reason. It probably does help. I mean, guys that are in fly tying always do the contrasting colors for something different. Give the fish something it hasn't seen in a while, it's more likely to check it out. You know that steelhead figure out whether something's edible or not, obviously by putting it in their mouth, and that's the idea. Okay, we're gonna go to the large T-stops from B&R. B&R also offers small ones, and they offer them in clear as well. I use both clear and the red colored ones. Red tends to be more of a favorite for me because it gives that blood dot effect, that blood line through the egg. I feel like that's something like a vein in roe that the fish might key in on. I slide that down to the other two, and now I have the three components that will hold the bead in place. ClearDrift is those are glowing beads, by the way, but ClearDrift is another manufacturer of soft beads that I've used. I tend to gravitate toward the 10mm and 12mm beads regardless of the season and clarity of the water. I will run a lead bead that is a chartreuse or glow or a bright green or pink or hot pink when the water clarity is murky and or heavily stained, and that usually is in a 12mm, and then I'll follow it up with as an attractant 10 or an 8mm in a more natural color, and that's just my preference. This is what I do. I've found success with it. Maybe your mileage may vary, and I wouldn't be scared about the bigger beads either, because when you consider that when we tie roe sacks, those could be anywhere from a nickel size, dime size, nickel size, quarter size, and you can see that a 12mm bead is significantly smaller than a quarter size sack in stained water. And I'm just showing here how easy it is to remove a bead, choose another bead, and this is something that, I mean, I guess you could do stream side, but in this case I'm showing you I can reuse the bead I just took off, and I've chosen to go with B&R's mottled beads, and it kind of looks like it's got skin peeling off of it or scrambled eggs on the surface of the bead, and it's got a really cool effect. It's sort of I guess reminiscent of a bead that has been in the system, been in the water floating around for a certain amount of time, and its casing is starting to break down. It's funny, we spend so much time trying to imitate natural things, the natural color of the eggs, the way the eggs are colored and or shaped and or deteriorating at that particular time of the season, and the water temperature and clarity and all this other stuff. But then we also throw in chartreuse eggs, which are unlike anything in nature, and these odd colored eggs, combination of eggs with pinks and reds and purples, and so it's just a matter of enticing the fish to bite. And I think a lot of times they see a lot of similar things at one after another, and then they see something different, and that's what piques their interest and possibly get you a hookup. You'll see I use this to, when I'm done tying a lead, I'll use this to organize all the beads that I've done for the day. And I do have carrying totes, organizers that I use in my pack so that I could pack anywhere from 30 to 50 beads per carrier. So if I really wanted to get crazy, I could probably get to the river with 150 different beads of sizes and colors. But typically I just carry one of them in a variety of different sizes and colors, maybe 30 to 50 to the stream to play around with. So you can see my bead setup here of all the options I have at my disposal, and it starts to get addicting. So you'll need organizers, you'll need a multitude of different hooks and colors. The combination sometimes is what really gets the fish to bite. I mean, you can have one that looks super natural at the bottom, and one that is just an attractor color at the top if you're running tandems. That's will be a winner for a day, one after another. You never have to change colors, you just use one set, and it just works. And at the very end here, you're going to see the amount of glow that's put off by these beads when you hit them with UV light. The UV light I hit them with was only for maybe 5 seconds or so. They really glow, and in a deep pool and in stained water, that's definitely going to be a fish attractor right there. So hopefully you got something out of this video. If you did, hit the like button. If you want to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe. And if you really like our videos, visit our channel and possibly consider sharing our videos with your friends. Hopefully you got something out of this bead rigging tutorial. And I appreciate your time. Thanks for visiting Lighthaven Farm.